While the SFP types are seen as happy-go-lucky hedonists, the SFJ types seem to be pigeonholed as traditional mother figures. With this in mind, the ISFJ has a peculiar stereotype in the Jungian community. Kiersey called them the protectors, Personality Page calls them the nurturers, and I've also seen the nickname defender used. While the ISFJ stereotype always admits this nurturing nature and is sometimes used to imply weakness or passivity, these traits are considered redeemed by the ISFJ's other qualities. People very rarely seek to outright deride the ISFJ. If they express frustration with SJs, as is fashionable with some groups, the ISFJ is not the type directly under attack. It's usually the ESFJ. The stereotype for the ISFJ is of a relatively quiet, reserved, unassuming, but very strong-hearted and loyal, responsible, protective figure. Their disinterest in typology is more politely excused with the genuine assumption that the ISFJ does in fact possess valuable concrete knowledge. The ISFJ seems to be considered wise in a peculiar way. Their silence is mysterious, and their kindness and concern for others very comforting, though they aren't normally given to bouts of laughter or meaningless smiles. They represent a strong but sensitive spirit or a stern but loving mother figure. In many ways, they are a sort of concrete, unphilosophical but wise, rustic kind of INFJ. As with all of these videos, I aim to describe the core of the ISFJ profile, and the typical ISFJ is an individual just as capable or incapable of becoming a hero of the history books as any other personality. To begin, let's break down what constitutes the ISFJ functionally. They are a judging type, meaning that they prefer extroverted judging and introverted perceiving. This means that they base their judgment criteria on objective outside information, while simply observing and drinking in their subjective information and experiences. You could say that they are more aggressive towards the outside world and more receptive towards their inner experience. Their preferred way of doing this is through extroverted feeling and introverted sensation. Extroverted feeling is accommodating. It adapts to objectively understood values, becoming whatever is appropriate, harmonizing, or desirable for a given situation. Meanwhile, introverted sensation perceives reality as it is, but invests its perceptions with subjectivity and recalls these subjective memories in similar situations. It is recording, or if you like, cataloging or recalling. Third, they are very similar to the ESFJ. Both prefer extroverted feeling and introverted sensation. The ISFJ, however, prefers introverted sensation more than extroverted feeling. Nevertheless, they are in some sense the same type, or at least sister types. I personally like to call SFJ types the guardians, because they thoroughly examine reality and compare it with all the past experiences they've collected in their database, and then decide how best to harmonize with or provide for or protect a situation. Of course, guardian is merely a nickname to help me remember the SFJ nature, and does not mean SFJs are necessarily interested in guardianship as we normally think of it. The ISFJ, then, is a, quote, guardian for whom their subjective perceptions of reality hold more importance than accommodation. They are primarily concerned with recording and exploring information gleaned from reality. The word I like to use for the ISFJ is dedication. To fully understand my meaning for this term, it is important to better understand one of the more misunderstood functions, introverted sensation. As I've mentioned before, the introverted functions are focused on the subject, meaning that introverted sensation rather than focusing on the actual object itself, as extroverted sensation does, observes the effect that the object makes in the subject. I've likened this idea to a wet clay sculpture being impressed by various hands or objects. Another image to help describe this, especially in the ISFJ's case, was offered by Carl Jung's wife, Emma Jung, who described introverted sensation as a sensitive photographic plate that is emblazoned with impressions of objects that the introverted sensation type needs time to assimilate and develop. For instance, if someone new walks into the room, the ISFJ will be filled with impressions that the person inspires within them, in which they must take time to develop and sort through to form a curiously penetrating image of the person in relation to all of the ISFJ's past experiences. Another image I personally like to use is of a spider's web. Should a fly ever hit the web, the spider would feel the particular vibrations caused by the impact, and by experience can determine the species, size, flight, speed, and trajectory of the fly, or at least know where this fly fits in comparison to other flies. It is in this way that introverted sensation becomes very meticulous and sensitive to detail, just as any spider is sensitive to the slightest change in vibration along their web. It also reinforces their tendency towards preparation and the safety of routine, because their understanding of impressions is based on past experience, making the unknown future especially mysterious. In the case of the ISFJ, the sensitivity is the main cause of their stereotypical quietude and reservation. The ISFJ is very much an observer who needs time to fully process their impressions of the world. But when this processing is done, the ISFJ can achieve very insightful pictures of reality, picking up on little things that others fail to notice, and putting together a unique picture of people, concepts, or things. But a more fundamental part of their personality is related to the word dedication. The two axes manifesting in the ISFJ are introverted sensation and extroverted intuition, which has just been explained as meticulous, multifaceted, and detailed, and extroverted feeling and introverted thinking, which seeks to appeal to a higher standard than itself, whether objective sentiment or subjective logic. So, what happens when you combine a thorough, detailed nature with a morality based on holding to a higher standard? You get thorough dutifulness, or as I prefer to say, dedication. One of the things most distinguishing about ISFJs is their interest in diligently doing the little things, very unassuming small acts designed to strengthen others. For instance, George Marshall ensuring that the troops in World War II were supplied with candy, Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat to a white person, or Mother Teresa's advice that it is not how much we do, but how much love we put in the action that we do. For the ISFJ, it's the thought that counts. Their psychological preferences direct their minds in this way, to demonstrate their dedication to others through diligent service. And because of the practical sensitivity of introverted sensation, this service always seems to have a charming simplicity and smallness to it that warms the recipient's heart, not because the thing itself was great, but because it testified of the ISFJ's love for them. Another point that should be explored here is the ISFJ's sense of diligence or dutifulness. For the ISTJ, who has a TEFI axis, this sense of duty originates within the individual, a burning fire or personal loyalty, a part of the ISTJ's identity that they must strive to affirm. For the ISFJ, however, who has an FETI axis, the sense of duty is a higher principle outside of the individual to which they feel they must conform or grab a hold of, so as not to be blown away by the storm of life. So while the ISTJ appears more individualistic, fulfilling routines or responsibilities because of an ingrown loyalty, the ISFJ appears more harmonizing, fulfilling responsibilities because their truth and worth has been confirmed for the ISFJ. The ISTJ has an inner sense of duty, while the ISFJ has an outer sense of duty, which is often directed towards the welfare of others. This is a very important aspect of the ISFJ. Like the INFJ, the focus of their introverted perceiving is to help humanity in general. While the INFJ seeks to do this by contemplating possibilities and making grand solutions, the ISFJ reviews their impressions of reality and develops concrete solutions. They carry out these solutions diligently, thoroughly, in other words, with dedication, with love for humanity as a whole or concern for the community's interest. When the ISFJ endeavors to do something, they are not going to back down. They will do it, and they will do it properly, with a powerful dedication to the higher standard by which they abide. Rosa Parks, for instance, did a very simple thing. She refused to give up her seat to a white person. She was arrested and escorted to jail, but she would not back down. When interviewed about the event, she is reported of saying that she was not even frightened, but more annoyed than anything. This brings up another very important point about ISFJs. Their perceived obligations to a higher standard makes them characteristically proper, having a definite sense of decency, of right and wrong, which when violated can greatly frustrate or offend the ISFJ, but not in a petty or weak way, but a morally indignant way, arousing, as Rosa Parks probably understated it, annoyance. They stand by what they know is right and can get extraordinarily stubborn and even vehement towards disregard for the standard. This sense of properness is often interpreted as traditionalism. In a sense it is, but not because the ISFJ is blindly following the crowd, as the FITE axis tends to believe. FETI is not about conformity, but about recognizing the value that is placed in objects, whether or not the ISFJ actually values the objects themselves. For the ISFJ, questions of value are questions of sociology. Gold is valuable not because the ISFJ has decided that it is valuable, but because it is generally considered to be valuable. The ISFJ's sense of morality, then, is not a burning sense of personal values, but an irrefutable logic or principle. FETI types feel morality as a matter of self-transformation, of becoming something different, rather than becoming more of who you already are. FETI types don't have a clue what trust yourself is really supposed to mean, because they do not feel like they developed this morality itself, but that these are self-evident truths that they discovered. Logic and principles are therefore something sacred to FETI types. Rosa Parks remained seated not as an affirmation of a burning passion, but as a frustrated adherence to such a logical principle. In contrast, the ISTJ's FITE axis sees properties and principles as something endowed by other people on objects. The object has these properties because that's how people see it. Logic is a matter of psychology and not of truth. For them, truth is a sacred and personal matter of values. The point here is that the ISFJ is not a conformist. They are simply sensitive to the generally accepted value of things, and are thus able to navigate the world with this clearly in mind. They most certainly have and exercise personal choice and opinion that may differ from other people, but these choices are based on subjective logic and reasoning and not on values. These effects of the FETI axis result in the ISFJ's dedication. This dedication seeks as much as possible to be perfect in its actions. It is very possible for the ISFJ to wear themselves out because of their relentless thoroughness, driven by a need to conform with the outside standard. As I've mentioned before, sensation actually sees more than intuition does, and for this reason takes longer but is ultimately more accurate. This applies to the INFJ and ISFJ, where the INFJ dedicates themselves to the greater good in more symbolic grand scheme ways, quite often in the form of writing or proclamations of truth, or admirable gestures in their lifestyle. The ISFJ dedicates themselves in concrete, small but diligent practical ways, for instance ensuring everybody is taken care of, striving to be a responsible parent, For the ISFJ, true dedication is not about grand overarching ideas, but about doing the actual grunt work, the little things, and keeping the underlying machinery running in proper order. And that takes time and meticulousness, patience, discipline, and dedication. The ISFJ's overwhelming preference for introverted sensation subsequently represses their extroverted intuition. As explained before, the ISFJ's sensitivity to impressions from their environment contributes to their dedication and thoroughness bordering on perfectionism, as well as a sense of propriety based on past experience. A way to sum up this part of the ISFJ's attitude is a caution towards the future and the unknown. The INFJ's introverted intuition is focused on possibilities, and therefore is more comfortable with the oncoming future, having projected into it plenty of times before. But the ISFJ's introverted sensation is focused on actuality, on what's already known, and has no reason to trust such projections into the future. It is something dangerous one must prepare for. This attitude is so strong in the ISFJ that they are often uncomfortable breaking out of their routine and innovating new methods of doing things. Or if they try to do this, they are rather clumsy at it. While the INFJ represses their direct perception of objects and therefore has trouble living in the moment, so the ISFJ represses their indirect perception of objects, of what they could be, and therefore has trouble living out of the moment, if you will. In other words, because of the ISFJ's introverted sensation and its direct perception of impressions, the ISFJ necessarily views objects indirectly, looking at associations with the object. But the ISFJ finds this exercise tiring and difficult to control. Often, like so many INFJs, they try to push their extroverted intuition deep down, never letting loose and trying things in new ways, because in these cases their associations have similar problems to the ESTP and ESFP, where they overestimate or incorrectly associate objects to make an innovation that ultimately falls flat. So, in summary, the ISFJ is dedicated, combining a sensitivity to detailed impressions of the world with an FETI concern for humanity and a sense of a higher standard and duty. They take notice of people's concrete situations and are known for diligently taking care of the little things for others. They have a distinguishing sense of propriety and a severity and stubbornness towards violations of it. Unfortunately, they repress extroverted intuition, and therefore have trouble venturing into the unknown realms of innovation, either refusing to do so at all or stumbling through it. The best list of example ISFJs can be found at celebritytypes.com and includes George Marshall, Robert E. Lee, Jimmy Carter, Marcus Aurelius, Rosa Parks, Mother Teresa, Christopher Walken, Anthony Hopkins, Naomi Watts, Halle Berry, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kirsten Dunst, Bruce Willis, Brian May, and Lance Reddick. Thanks for watching, and for all the ISFJs out there, thanks for your concern and diligence in nurturing us even in the smallest of details.